Okay, hi guys. This is a tutorial on how to use my nostalgia lookup table to grade your S-Log3 content. So from Sony cameras, so A7S, FS7, FS5, etc. So in Premiere, drop a clip onto the timeline that you shot in S-Log3. In this case, this shot is from a recent shoot of mine in Barbados. Click on the color tab at the top of the screen. In the side window, click on the creative panel. In the look drop down, click browse, locate the lookup table, in which case it's just there. Load it in, and already you can see it's, the image looks a lot better. But I do say to everyone, don't just drop the lookup table on and leave it at that. It really needs to be tweaked depending on how you've exposed your content, the sort of way you've white balanced it, the colours that are within the frame. So it's definitely not just a one-step fix. When you're shooting S-Log, I tend to expose towards the upper end of the histogram, probably overexposing by one stop. So that's where I'd recommend exposing if you want this lookup table to work the best. So now you've loaded this in, pop back into the basic correction panel, and from here you can start messing around. And my way of grading is very much trial and error, so I move the sliders up and down until I find something that's pleasing to me. So in this case, I think probably about there is quite nice. In terms of the temperature, you can have a play around with the tint. I'm going to leave it around there. And just really play around with it. So this is probably a little bit hot, so I'm going to bring it down, bring some more contrast in, just to kind of darken these areas over here. You might want to bring the highlights down just a touch. Bring the shadows up just a little bit as well to retain some detail in these areas. And again, this is all personal taste. The lookup table is definitely a base from which you can, grade. And, it's nice to be able to put your own style and your own spin on things. So once you're happy with how this tab is looking, pop back into creative. I tend to add a little bit of sharpening. Not too much, because the FS7, the FS5, the A7S, in fact, as well, are all very sharp straight out of camera, so you don't want to overdo it. So something just like 10, just to give it a little bit more pop. And again, just playing around with the vibrance. I mean, in this case, it's a beach, so I think we want to keep a lot of those lovely blues and greens, and just like that. Now, something I did build into this lookup table, but only very subtly, is a curve that emulates film stock. So that's the kind of the milky blacks. I think video cameras a lot of the time will give you a very contrasty image, something like that straight out of the camera. And whilst that's great, it doesn't kind of hark back to what a film is all about. So that curve essentially looks something like this. I take the bottom pin and pull it up a tiny bit, probably to about there. Then I make another point, and in around this area, I bring some contrast back in, and this is all trial and error once again. And finally, up the top end, you can just bring in some more poppy highlights. So just to show you what that's doing, it's very subtle. As I say, it's already built into the lookup table. And the tool I like the most in Premiere Pro's new Lumetri color panel is this kind of hue saturation curve wheel. So you can single out colors, ranges that you like, and pop them out more, desaturate them. And so in this case, we could really saturate, the blues over here in the sky and the sea. We could drop them out if we wanted to. You can sometimes get some, oversaturated skin tones or funny looking skin tones with S-Log. So a lot of the time I'll select a range between the yellows and reds and just desaturate just slightly. So if you look on the skin now of this lady, it's slightly more natural. So finally, pop a vignette on. So I do something very subtle. So something like that. Lots of feathering, again, playing around. And there's your final graded image. So to show you that's the grade, that's without, that's where we started. So a real difference and a really filmic image. Just to show you this working on another clip. This is something from a road trip in the USA, so I'm going to follow exactly the same process. I'm going to go to Creative, Browse, load the lookup in. Again, already it's doing a lovely job. Pop over into the basic correction panel, and I'm going to do this really quickly and just find something that looks nice to me. And the highlights down a touch. Pop some sharpening on, boost those colours just a little bit more. And there you have it. So it's really as easy as that with this lookup table. And you know, S-Log3 is a notoriously difficult log curve to get to grips with, especially if you're coming from, you know, consumer or prosumer level cameras. It can be a tricky thing to get used to, but hopefully this lookup table really gives you guys a good base to work from, and you can make some amazing looking content.